The story begins with a moment of casual cruelty that quickly turns into public humiliation. A black woman is stopped at airport security and immediately treated with suspicion and mockery, not because of anything she has done, but because of what she carries and how she looks. Her bag of wigs becomes a target for ridicule, and instead of professionalism, the security officer responds with sarcasm, laughter, and demeaning jokes. He questions her intelligence, her taste, and even her right to feel offended, reducing her culture to something he labels as ugly, fake, or ridiculous. What should have been a routine security check becomes an abuse of authority fueled by ignorance and bias. The officer does not see her as a person, but as a stereotype. He dismisses her explanations, interrupts her, and uses his position to belittle her further, implying that her hair choices make her suspicious or even dangerous. Every comment strips away her dignity, turning her identity into a punchline. When she explains that her hair is part of her culture, history, and self-expression, he mocks that too, refusing to acknowledge that something meaningful to her could exist outside his narrow understanding of the world. His words suggest that her appearance needs approval, that her existence must fit his comfort to be valid. What makes the moment more painful is her restraint. Despite being deeply offended, she remains composed, asserting that her hair is her choice and does not require validation. Her calm response highlights the imbalance of power in the situation. She is forced to endure humiliation simply to move forward, knowing that any emotional reaction could be used against her. This reflects a reality many people face, where speaking up risks further punishment, and silence becomes a form of survival. This key moment exposes how prejudice often disguises itself as jokes, authority, or procedure. The officer believes he is untouchable, free to judge and insult without consequence. He does not consider the weight of his words or the humanity of the woman standing in front of him. Instead, he reinforces harmful stereotypes, showing how deeply ingrained bias can surface in everyday interactions. This encounter sets the emotional foundation of the story, revealing how ignorance can wound, how culture can be dismissed, and how dignity can be challenged in the most ordinary places. The story shifts from public humiliation to a deeply private struggle when the focus turns to illness and loss of control. The same security officer who showed cruelty and arrogance is suddenly revealed in a very different light, facing devastating news about someone he loves. The diagnosis of advanced cancer changes the tone completely, exposing vulnerability where authority once stood. The sterile hospital room replaces the noisy airport, and the weight of words spoken by doctors carries far more gravity than insults ever did. In this space, fear, uncertainty, and helplessness take over. As treatment begins, the physical and emotional toll becomes painfully clear. Chemotherapy drains strength, energy, and confidence, stripping away not only health but identity. Hair loss becomes one of the most visible and emotionally painful side effects, especially for someone who once took appearance for granted. Each strand falling away represents another piece of normal life disappearing. The patient struggles to recognize herself in the mirror, feeling exposed, fragile, and ashamed of a body she can no longer control. What once felt like a small cosmetic detail now feels like the loss of dignity. The emotional burden does not exist in isolation. Loved ones try to offer comfort, reassurance, and hope, but their words cannot fully erase the pain of self-image being shattered. Even kind intentions sometimes fall short against the harsh reality of illness. The patient wants to be strong, to believe that everything will return to normal. Yet fear constantly creeps in. The illness becomes more than a medical condition. It becomes a thief, stealing confidence, joy, and a sense of self. This moment in the story highlights a powerful contrast. The same person who once judged another woman's hair now witnesses how deeply hair is tied to identity, self-worth, and emotional survival. Illness forces a reckoning, revealing how fragile everyone truly is. The loss experienced here mirrors the earlier humiliation in a different form, creating an unspoken connection between two lives that briefly crossed. Suffering breaks down arrogance and exposes humanity, showing that pain has a way of teaching lessons that words alone never could. This phase of the story lays the groundwork for transformation, where empathy begins to grow from personal loss and vulnerability. As the treatments continue, the story moves into a quiet phase of endurance, where each day becomes a test of patience and emotional strength. The hospital environment turns into a second home, filled with routine checkups, long waits, and moments of forced optimism. The patient learns to measure time not in days or weeks, but in treatments completed and side effects endured. Fatigue settles deep into the body, making even simple movements feel heavy. Yet there is a determination to keep going, because stopping is not an option. The struggle with self-image grows stronger during this period. Looking into the mirror becomes an emotional challenge, as the reflection no longer matches the person remembered. The absence of hair feels like a public announcement of illness, something impossible to hide. Each glance serves as a reminder of vulnerability and loss, creating a sense of grief for the person she used to be. The effort to hold on to confidence feels exhausting, especially when surrounded by a world that still values appearance and normalcy. Support from loved ones becomes a lifeline. Small gestures, gentle words, and shared silence offer comfort when nothing else can. The presence of someone who stays through sleepless nights and difficult mornings reinforces the idea that love does not disappear when things get ugly or inconvenient. Even when encouragement feels repetitive, it provides stability in a life that feels constantly uncertain. These moments of connection help rebuild strength in ways medicine alone cannot. Hope begins to take a fragile shape as progress is slowly acknowledged. Doctors mention improvement, treatments near completion, and the possibility of recovery. Though fear remains, it is no longer the only emotion in the room. There is cautious optimism, a sense that the suffering may have a purpose beyond pain. This stage of the journey shows resilience being formed in silence, through repetition and endurance rather than dramatic victories. It reveals that healing is not only about the body recovering, but about learning to accept change, lean on others, and find worth beyond what is seen on the surface. As recovery begins to feel possible, the story shifts toward moments of emotional rebuilding and quiet transformation. This phase is marked by encounters that test confidence in unexpected ways, especially in public spaces where judgment can feel sharper. Wearing a headscarf or wig becomes more than a practical choice. It turns into a symbol of survival and personal dignity. Each step outside requires courage, as the fear of being stared at or misunderstood lingers beneath the surface. A painful reminder of societal judgment appears through careless comments and insensitive behavior. These moments reopen emotional wounds, reinforcing how quickly people can judge without understanding the battles others are fighting. Even when apologies follow, the damage of such words cannot be easily undone. They highlight how deeply appearance is tied to respect and how easily compassion is replaced by criticism. Yet, enduring these moments without losing inner strength becomes part of the healing process. Amid this discomfort, small acts of kindness regain their power. A supportive partner, a reassuring smile, or a gentle reminder that beauty is not lost creates emotional grounding. These reassurances do not erase insecurity, but they help prevent it from taking over completely. Gradually, confidence begins to return, not because everything looks the same as before, but because self-worth is being redefined. The reflection in the mirror may still feel unfamiliar, but it no longer feels unacceptable. This stage represents the emotional turning point where survival transforms into self-acceptance. Instead of fighting change, there is a growing understanding that strength has taken a new form. The experience reshapes identity, proving that beauty can exist alongside pain, and that dignity is not dependent on meeting anyone else's expectations. Through resilience and support, the character moves forward, carrying scars not as symbols of loss, but as proof of endurance and courage in the face of life-altering challenges. The final phase of the story brings everything full circle, focusing on understanding, forgiveness, and quiet redemption. A chance reunion reveals how lives intersect in unexpected ways, turning past cruelty into an opportunity for growth. The person who once judged and mocked now stands face to face with the consequences of their ignorance. This moment is not loud or dramatic. It is deeply human, filled with humility and realization. The power of this scene lies in recognition, in finally seeing another person not as an object of judgment, but as a whole human being with pain, history, and resilience. The apology offered is heavy with regret, shaped by weeks of guilt and reflection. It is not an attempt to erase the past, but an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. This admission marks a shift from arrogance to empathy, showing how personal suffering can awaken compassion. The words spoken carry weight because they are rooted in understanding rather than obligation. It becomes clear that growth often begins only after one is forced to confront their own cruelty. Forgiveness arrives gently, without bitterness or superiority. It is offered not to excuse the harm, but to release it. This act of forgiveness becomes an empowering moment, demonstrating strength that goes beyond survival. It reflects emotional maturity and the ability to rise above pain without denying it. In this exchange, healing extends beyond physical recovery and reaches into emotional restoration for both individuals. The significance of hair is finally understood in its fullest sense. It is revealed not merely as appearance, but as identity, culture, joy, and healing. The wigs symbolize restoration, not of what was lost, but of how one feels inside. They allow confidence to return and self-love to re-emerge. Even in the aftermath of illness, beauty is redefined as something resilient, adaptable, and deeply personal. The story concludes on a note of hope and humanity. It reminds us that compassion can be learned, forgiveness can heal unseen wounds, and dignity can survive even the harshest trials. In the end, understanding becomes the true victory, proving that kindness has the power to transform not only how we see others, but how we see ourselves. Never judge what you don't understand. Culture is not a costume. Hair is not just beauty. It's identity, history, and healing. Choose empathy. Choose respect. Recommended video to watch next.